We just talked about how you can clip multiple images down to a single base, and that's great. But usually, when you have more than one thing clipped down to a base, you're going to want to blend some things and make some things transparent. So, obviously, we have three images clipped here to a base. They're all perfectly solid and perfectly hard edged. And that might be the look you're going for over a shape. But oftentimes you're going to want to have one of those shapes, with some transparency on it. So you might do something as simple as just reducing the opacity on one or more of those shapes so that they become more see-through when they start to combine visually. So with that in mind, I want to show a little bit more sophisticated things you can do with this idea of blending clipped layers by using masks, by using blend modes, and also doing some opacity changes. The other thing here too is that I have this photo, and most of this series so far we've been using a base that's like a shape or a letter, some kind of underlying pixel information. But you can use another photo as the base just as well. And typically that's what I would do. I wouldn't always be making shapes. I would just put a photo down, clip something else to it, and start to combine the new photo with what photo information is underneath it. So what I mean by that is I have the photo itself, in this case, is the clipping base. Now I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, clip this image to it, and from there, if I start to do opacity changes, you can see they're beginning to have sort of a double exposure effect already, which is already looking, pretty interesting. But from there, what I can do is add a mask to the clipping layer, the layer that's clipped down to the base. So I'm going to click here to add a mask. And then if I start to paint with the brush tool, now I'm going to put this up back to 100% opacity for anyone who's not familiar with brushes. But when I start to paint using my brush tool, keyboard shortcut B, with black, it's where you're seeing black, it's hiding part of the photo. In this case, this photo of this kind of gold fabric, parts of it are being hidden, and I'm seeing the underlying photo there, which in this case is also the clipping base. So that combined with some reduced opacity, you can start to have, both transparency where you're seeing through one photo to another, getting that double exposure effect, but also you're choosing which parts of the imagery you've clipped down you want to hide versus reveal. And you can do that with reduced opacity on your brush and reduced flow on your brush as well, to get more subtle. I'm going to paint all that back up there for a second and kind of painting now with white, get rid of some of those pixels that I made. You can see there's barely anything masked here. Then when I switch back and start painting with black, if I do that with even, more reduced opacity and more reduced flow, it's going to more gradually build up the dark pixels here that are hiding parts of this gold fabric photo. So it's a more gradual, subtle kind of build up, and that layering and transparency looks nice. Now from there, I can start to add additional photos. So this is same thing as before, clipping multiple things down to a base. I'm going to add a mask to this clipped photo as well. I'll probably paint this one a bit more aggressively in terms of what areas I'm masking off, and say I basically want to mask off, most everything in this entire middle area and leave some of these flowers down on the bottom. You can see as I'm building that mask up with the brush, the more I paint over it with black, the more of that photo becomes hidden. Both of these are clipped down to that base. Both of these photos, this one I have some reduced opacity on it. This one I could also reduce the opacity or the flow if I wanted to give it a little bit of transparency. By and large, I want to keep most of my elements pretty opaque and then just mask off areas that I want to sort of blend. And let's do that additional photo too. This one, I don't know, maybe I'll move it around a little bit. Any of these things can be resized, moved, and manipulated before you start to do masking and things. But let's say that looks good, add another mask to it, and in this case, B for brush. I think maybe for this one I'll mask off most of this photo except for where it's sort of overlapping her face, so we can get some of this glittery, purpley, I don't know if that's paint or water or some combination or what, but it's an interesting kind of color and texture. And from there, blend modes, when you click here where it says normal, right now this is a normal, it's just sitting on top of the other clipped elements. But if I start to go through these blend modes, it will combine the photo on top with the pixels that are underneath. Some of them will combine the pixels in a way that they become darker. Some of them will combine in a way that they become lighter. And then there's others that sort of make it look more overlaid or they're more about sort of the lighting conditions, hard light. Some of them pretty intense. And these can be really hard to predict what they're going to look like. So usually what you do is just start going through them. And, I'm going to reduce the opacity a little bit too. So this is partially transparent. And then just start going through them and see if something looks interesting. And these can, like I said, be really hard to predict, but you might be going through them and have a surprise in terms of what it looks like that you're like, oh, I really like the look of that, and then you kind of go with it. So, and I'm not sure if I'm seeing anything super striking here yet, but I mean, there's definitely interesting looking ones. So just as a quick example of the types of things you can do, we went from this photo just being the straight up photo to then adding this clipped element with some reduced opacity and some masking, then adding this clipped element with some masking, full opacity, adding this one, a little bit of reduced opacity, and a blend mode change. And now it's starting to become blended, multiple exposure, collage, colorful, expressive, textural, sort of composite image. And just with those few basic tools and clipping something down to one photo.